person next to you, you're going to think of a color. And not just any color, so not just red or blue or green, but a color that has something to go with it. So maybe you're going to say majestic purple, or maybe you're going to say baby blue, or maybe you're going to say bright green. And you're going to come up with a way to say it to the group. And in these rests in between, do you hear the color? You're going to do your color. Think about how you want to say it instead of just, if I point to you, instead of just saying red or baby blue, maybe you're going to go baby blue. How can you make it rhythmic? Discuss.
Lime green. Lime green.
Perfect.
One per group. So each partner group, you're going to do it together.
Okay.
Lime green. With a nice
Start on the up. Pull up.
There we go.
Don't overthink it.
How can we work this out?
Do you hear the color? Do you hear the color? Baby blue. Do you hear the color? Rosy red. Do you hear the color? Pretty purple. Do you hear the color? Red, red. Do you hear the color?
Happy yellow.
Do you hear the color?
Lime green.
Do you hear the color? Fabulous. Okay, this time you're going to do the same thing, but you're going to represent your color using some body percussion somehow. So maybe with baby blue, I might do baby blue or something like that. Except you don't get to say it. So if it was baby blue, I might go. Okay, go ahead, discuss.
Body percussion.
Yes.
Stomp and clap. Easy. It's supposed to show our attention. I don't know. I can only talk.
Do you hear the color? 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 All right, take a moment with your partner and talk about, we just created a song, right? Talk about how was this song organized? How was our song organized? What does that mean to you?
You had the pre-stated phrase, the antecedent.
Yeah. Response. So the emphasis is on rhythm. It's like a little bit of singing, and then just through the rhythm.
What did we think? How did we organize it? How do we organize it? What did you come up with?
I think
Yeah.
it sounds like a dialogue. Da da dee dee da da, and our creation is like a response.
Okay, so maybe like a call and response. That might be the form of the song. What else might be the form of the song? What did other groups talk about?
We had a preceding and antecedent phrase, and we made up our own antecedent phrase.
Okay, so we had a preceding phrase, and then we had an antecedent that we made up. Okay, how else do people describe it?
We talked about how you taught it. You did that theme, and then we got comfortable with the theme.
Okay.
And we added our color, speaking, and then we added body percussion there.
Okay, we're going to get to that in just a minute, but I'm so glad you noticed that. Anybody else have any other ways of describing this form?
It's really like predictable.
Okay.
Like we knew when we were going, because we were going in order, and we knew what the melody was going to be because it was like repeating.
Great. A little bit. All right, now turn to the other direction. So not the person you were just talking to. So Robert and Cynthia, you're going to come together, and Adam and David, you're going to come together. Introduce yourself and if you don't know this person. Okay. What are the pedagogical processes at play here? How did I teach this, and how did you learn? How did I teach this, and how did you learn? What just happened over the last 10 minutes?
No, I think you've got an idea.
She didn't have to do this for much training. She just like showed us and we just like knew what to do. Yeah.
Very example based and
Just
then demonstrated. It was kind of inviting. Okay, now you sing it. I was pointing, and I say repeat after me. Join the
Instructions on how to play a game and not like
Yeah.
very much.
Groups.
Okay, grab a seat. So what did you notice? What were some of the pedagogical processes at play here? What were some of the decisions that were made or not made as we went? Elizabeth?
I thought you scaffolded the body percussion part beautifully by using words first and associating the rhythm with the words that they already knew, and then they could translate that to their bodies.
Great. So we're starting with words. If we're doing this for perhaps with like a grade 3 class, starting with words gives them a starting point where they know about how long it needs to be, right? They're given a color, they're given something that goes before the color, they're not going to have some big long string of body percussion because they know it has to be within that color space. What else? Yeah, Beth.
I was talking with Kelly about how your instructions were very to the point, there was no rambling, and that you demonstrated everything first
Okay.
for us very clearly before expecting us to do it.
So there was a model that was constantly running through it. Did I give lots of examples?
No.
No, I gave one. Why not give 4, 5, 6 examples?
I think it's simple enough to grasp with one example, and if you do too many, then you might lose interest.
Might lose interest, might also end up with students saying, well, I don't know what else to pick. You've picked all of the colors, or I just want to pick what you've done, right? Robert, were you going to say something?
And to add to the demonstrating, when you started, you kind of invited the group to join what you were doing, instead of saying, okay, now repeat after me, kind of. It was just point to everybody, and everyone eventually, by the second time, everyone was on the same page.
So using body language instead of stopping and starting constantly. Keeps attention quicker, students recognize that it's their turn, you're modeling that sort of body language as you go. What was the sort of musical element vocab word that I threw in there? As when I asked you how it was put together, you were giving your answers.
Is it form?
So this is an opening lesson on form that you might do with a group of students. Notice that I didn't have you come in and sit down and say, okay everyone, today we're going to talk about form. Form is X, Y, and Z. Now let's try applying form. So often this is how we learn in classes. I'm sure you can come up with an example in your mind of having a class, whether it was a music class or high school or university, where you were presented with information, told to read it, memorize it, or the professor did something with it, and then you prove that you learned it by applying it. That negates all information, all knowledge that each person in the class brings into the room. Grade 3 students understand patterns. Form at its most foundational level is a pattern. a group of 8, 9-year-olds, they understand, oh, it's everybody's turn, now it's my turn. Now it's everybody's turn, now it's my turn. Why do you think I had you do it in partners? Safety. Safety in numbers. It can be scary to have to do a body percussion, even if it's short in front of your friends, but there's a safety to doing it with a group. All right, we are going to move on to a second activity that's still related to colors and still related to composition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide us up. We've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, perfect. 3, Elizabeth, you're going to go with David and Xiao, the 3 of you together, and the 4 of you together. The 4 of you are red, the 3 of you are yellow, and the 3 of you are blue. What you're going to do, you can use body percussion, you can use any pitched or unpitched percussion that's in the room, but we're not going to pull guitars or drums or anything like that for right now, but there's a variety of things back there or in the back room. And you're going to come up with a looped rhythm for you that represents your color. So discuss what you think that color sounds like to you and come up with something that you can play over and over and over again. Questions?
What's our color again?
You're blue. You have 4 minutes. Yes?
Do we need to play the different rhythm or our group play the one?
You're going to play it together. Great question, Xiao. Thank you for clarifying. Go. Bring them back to the circle once you have figured it out. Okay, if you could stay in your groups but turn and face so that you can see a little bit this way. If you have an instrument, if you could place it down so that it's not jiggling or dangling as we're chatting nicely here. When we have form in music, what do we read to help tell us what the form is? What do we read? What do we have in front of us usually when we're playing music?
Notation.
Notation of some kind, right? And it oftentimes looks like this, right? All sorts of little notes on the page. We're going to change up our notation. This is our notation, okay? Let's stop for a moment and come out of the simulation of being in a 3rd grade class, and I want to talk for a moment about the choice to do this. Who is being left out in a classroom when I put a painting on the wall and I say that we're going to use these colors as our notation? Kelly.
The composer.
The composer. What students are being left out? What students might struggle with this, Cynthia?
Colorblind.
Yeah, you might have students who are colorblind. You might have students who have synesthesia, who have a hard time associating colors with specific sounds because they hear something different in their mind. So there are a few different spaces that we might want to engage with here. Instead of ignoring it, I like to use this as an opportunity to have conversations about, okay, how do we hear color differently, everybody? How do different people see color differently? This is also a great place when you're teaching to incorporate children's literature as a way to tell a story, to have a conversation about things like color blindness. Eric the Red Sees Green is a wonderful kid story about that. And The Girl Who Heard Colors is a fantastic story about synesthesia if you want to have those conversations with students. But if I want to go back to this, and I want to make it a more accessible activity for all students, regardless of how they see color, I might simply add a Y, an R, and a B. The top is yellow, the middle is red, the bottom is blue. Who else is this giving additional access to? Who else might struggle with associating the word yellow to the color yellow, the word red with the color red?
Maybe English as second language?
Students who might have English as an additional language. If you're doing this with younger students who are still learning to spell words and sound out words like red and yellow and blue, so you are supporting literacy in that sense. So still using the painting, still doing the activity, but creating more spaces for access within that. Okay, so back into our simulation of being in our grade 3 class. This is our musical score, so we are going to interpret it. Who has an idea? How should we read this? What direction do you want to read it in? What do you think? Adam, what do you think?
Let's go from the bottom up.
Let's go from the bottom up. So I'll trace as we go, and as I'm on blue, we'll hear from blue. And then what are we going to do when we get to white? What do you want to do, Adam? It's yours.
Stop.
Stop, okay. So we'll have a space. What do we call silence in music? Rest. Then we'll go into red, and then will we have another space here? Up to you, Adam.
No space.
No space, so we'll go right into yellow. Okay, here we go. So you're gonna have to watch and play. Are we ready? Blues? All right, nice song, everybody. Okay. Ooh. How do you want to interpret this one? Who has an idea?
Can we go from left to right?
So from left to right, so we'll start from this side.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be all blue by themselves. What do we do when we get to black? What do you want to do?
Let's rest.
Let's rest. Then we'll do red. And then at the very end, what are we going to have?
Red and yellow.
Red and yellow. Okay. I'll play it from down here so that you can see. Ready, blue? You guys are starting us off on everything. All right, here we go. Ready? All right. Okay. Different or the same as our last one?
Different.
Different. What do we do here?
Free for all.
Free for all. Chaos. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'll point, you play, you guys decide what tempo you go in each group, and then I'll do a nice big cutoff when we're going to end. Okay? Here we go. Ready? Fantastic! Oh, okay, let's come out of being in a simulation. We're going to wrap this up with talking about purpose. Discuss with your group, what do you think was the purpose of this whole thing? From the moment you walked in, we started with, do you hear the color? And then we went all the way to the end. I'm thinking musical purposes, I'm thinking pedagogical purposes, I'm thinking educational purposes. What do you think might have been my impetus for teaching a lesson like this, if I was in a grade 3 classroom? Discuss. Okay, so what are some of the things that you talked about? Purposes. What do you think were my sort of driving purposes? It is purposes, right? That would be
I think so.
plural of
Purposes.
Purpose-I.
Purpose. In my head, I'm thinking that. What do you think? What were some of the purposes you came up with? Yeah.
It accommodates all sorts of learning styles, and because, as Christine was saying, we often have a lot of different learners in an arts classroom particularly, so it gets the message across to all types of, or most types of learners.
Okay, so most people, if not all people, could be engaged in this in some way. Everybody has something they can contribute. Great, thank you. What else?
I thought that you were giving the students autonomy over some of the musical choices. And I think that that's important for, especially for little kids, knowing that they have autonomy over their music making.
Mm-hmm. So they're making choices themselves, they're making independent choices as well as collaborative choices. So you had to come to a consensus with the people in your group to create something together. What else?
We talked a little bit about how making it, like having to read, sort of read paintings and making decisions about that emphasizes how few rules there are in music. And then instead of, oh, here's our set rhythm and reading, sheet music or something, that it helps people recognize that there are not very many rules in music and that you can explore that.
So there's an interpretive element to creating music when
Yeah.
you are the performer.
Yeah.
Adam, what were you gonna add?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, also you allowed like the kids to come up with certain ideas about themselves as well, and then putting them in groups made them comfortable to do that, right? So I think that's another great aspect. So it wasn't just like a teacher-student role,
Okay.
but it allowed like creativity within the students to think and make up things that they want to do instead of the teacher saying, "Oh, actually, I want you to do this," or "I want you to do this." Certain.
Fantastic, fantastic. What musically did you do in the last half an hour? How many different ways did you engage with music? Did you sing? What was the solfege pattern? So if you're teaching grade 2, grade 3, you're probably doing lots of so, mi, la, so, mi songs, lots of nodding that I'm seeing, okay? Did you play with rhythm? Did you work with pace and tempo? When you were doing your individual? Did you improvise? Did you compose? Did you layer and create harmony in some ways? Did you play with a melody? That could certainly be a melody that you all sang at some point. Did you follow a conductor of some kind? It's a different way of following. We had to watch as I went. Did you read a score? Yeah, so you're doing all of these different things in what could seem like a pretty simple activity. What did you experience as a learner? How did you feel while you were playing? Were there scary things? Were there fun things? Were there frustrating things? Yeah, Kelly.
I was always excited when it was our turn to kind of like show off our little whereas like normally when we do composition or like improvising in class, I'm like, I don't want to go next. So yeah.
Because you were in a group or because you felt comfortable?
Yeah, because I was in a group and it wasn't like my composition, it was like ours. So
Okay.
I feel the pressure that I needed to be perfect.
Great. How did other people feel?
A little self-conscious.
Okay.
Not lie, but doing things as a group helped.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's great. So you're recognizing the self-consciousness too. You're recognizing, ooh, this is a little out of my comfort zone, but it wasn't so far out of your comfort zone that you were like, I can't, I'm not.
Yeah.
You still felt comfortable to engage. Great. Did anybody feel frustrated? Good, so we all felt successful as we went. Last question for today. How might you extend an experience like this? So if you're doing this in class, what are some other ways that you might incorporate composition? Or what might you do next with form? Discuss with your groups for just a quick second. Last discussion. What are some ideas?
You could do like instrumental solos in the group where you start off with your rhythm, but then each take turns doing something different, whatever that is, some different patterns chosen.
Providing more autonomy for each student.
Yeah. Or we could like play a track behind, so if we want to like pop music, so then we can just pop music and then let's introduce each other. Or like introduce like some classical music or jazz or music.
Let's have one extension from each group. Group Red, what was one of the extensions you came up with?
I forgot everything.
Kelly, what did you just suggest?
We said we could like put a backing track to it, so like with pop music or like classical or jazz, so that they're doing it to something.
Great, so we could have different backing tracks. We could try it. We could put each painting with a different backing track. So we might try one with a rock beat. We might try one with a jazz beat. We might try one with some sort of timpani orchestral soundtrack. Great. What's one suggestion that this group had?
We are talking about maybe next class we can focus on how to listen to each other. So because now we are listening to ourselves, but next time we can, listen to others and create more beautiful sound.
Oh, Xiao, I love that. So having this moment of revision, which is what's so important in the creative process. So wonderful, you created something today. Well, now we're putting it together. How would you change or revise what you're doing now that you know what everybody else is doing? That's fantastic. What's one extension that we had over here?
We talked about adding more melodic elements into it because often the melodic elements of it are like really vulnerable. Like I was saying to Cynthia, like I'm studying voice right now and it's really scary to sing in a classroom. But adding that in and it increases like the comfort level in the class. classroom, I think, overall, and it's also, you know, it adds to the composition.
Yeah, so having ways where we start including our voices in this, where we're not just all singing together, but we're doing some vocal exploration too. Fantastic.